Okay, I'm going to call this meeting of the Planning Commission, December 11th, at about 4:34 to order. And the first thing is citizens to be heard. If we have anybody who'd like to address an issue that's not part of the public hearing or on the agenda. Yes, and please, why don't you come forward and sit there and then state your name for the record.
My name is Gene Evercott, and I'm here to discuss the proposed zoning change for 1540. Is this the correct place to address it?
No, it isn't actually. So,
I'm sorry.
but we'll be addressing that in the public hearing. So this is for things that aren't on the agenda, but
Okay.
we'll give you an opportunity then.
So that's not
It's here.
That
It
is
is
tonight.
It's just later.
It's just
in the
not
agenda.
now.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. Any other public comment for things that aren't on the agenda? Okay, I'm going to take that as a no. Do we have any ex parte communications or disclosures from anyone? That is for the commissioners up here. Okay, and the one thing I would like to say is welcome to Mary Hofine, who is new on the Planning Commission, but not new to planning.
No, thank you so
Good,
much.
good to have you.
Thank you. I'm nervous. I've never been on this side.
You'll do great.
It's a new experience.
But I've been in more planning commission meetings than anybody in this room.
Okay, next item is approval of the minutes. Motion we approve.
I'll second it.
Any discussion on the minutes? Okay, how many are in favor of approving the minutes? Anybody against? And any abstentions?
Only because I wasn't there.
Great. And I guess next is department updates.
Okay, thank you, OB. So I just wanted to give you a few little updates here. Last week, we worked quickly to submit a grant application for UDOT's Technical Planning Assistant Grant. Actually, Katie, our Vista, worked really hard on this. I did a little bit of work, but she did the bulk of it. And collaborated with the Grand County Trails and Active Transportation Division, Maddie, and a few people from Trail Mix. So we were able to submit that in time, and hopefully we are going to be able to get that awarded. It would be for updating the non-motorized trails master plan, but also in this iteration, it would be including a large focus on active transportation planning throughout the valley. So looking at all of our roads and corridors, main corridors, and figuring out where we need more infrastructure for active transportation and multimodal opportunities. So that will be a collaborative effort between our department and GCAT and the Trail Mix crew. So that's exciting. Then also just wanted to let you all know that the RFP for the future land use plan contract work, that was basically around $80,000 that we had budgeted originally and requested for our budget for 2024. That amount was being looked at for the budget cuts, and so it was kind of a close call, but we were able to keep it on the 2024 budget for $60,000. So it's been reduced, and it's also been delayed because of all of that kind of going back and forth and trying to figure out if we were going to even be able to afford it next year. But that will be getting wrapped up in the next couple weeks here before Christmas. I'll get that out. So I'll send a copy to you all so you can see it before I actually get it online. And then the Waterwise landscaping ordinance progress update. Do we have Katie? She was going to just provide a brief update on what we've been doing on that.
Can you guys hear me? Sounds like no. Is it working? No.
Can't hear her. Shoot. We can't hear you, Katie. Just a minute.
Okay.
No. For feedback.
This maybe
Friday, but I'm so busy.
this computer here.
This Friday? Or this past Friday?
Okay, what about yours?
I said.
Raquel.
Oh.
Yeah.
I see. Man, I didn't make sure to learn that. Yeah, I was talking to Ryan about like. Systems.
Like speaker? No. But you could try. See the system and see. But it might mess up this. Can you try again, Katie?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you now.
Oh, great. Okay, great. The landscape ordinance is coming along. Over the past 2 weeks, I've been meeting with some local experts to get opinions on the draft that Jenna and I had come up with so far. And sort of comparing that to what the city has from the point of view of trying to keep it as simple as possible, as easy to use as possible, and also as easy on our end from the point of view of reviewing landscape plans, while also maintaining some coherence with what the city requires for reporting and some of the like more specific numbers that the city is using for like percentages of turf grass or requirements for trees in the front setback and things like that, and thinking about trying to imagine that if a landscaper is working in the city and also in the county, to be as coherent as possible with those numbers between the two, unless there's a really good reason to diverge from them, at least according to some of these more experienced landscapers that I've been talking to. So trying to balance all of that. Met with Jeff Adams and Ross McCann last week and have gotten some really good feedback, and have also been working on trying to make it more concise, really try to trim down what we had last time, which was really just kind of an amalgamation of everything that we could possibly have in there, trying to make it more simple and easy to use. So I think that the best thing for me would be to have a deadline in January or February to workshop this with the Planning Commission. And at that point I can have like a much more serious draft that has sort of responded to the initial feedback that Jenna and I got last time we all talked about this. So I was thinking maybe this might be a good time to see if we could get this on the agenda for sometime in January, February.
Yeah. What do you guys think? I mean, we haven't really planned out much for January, February quite yet, but I'm sure we'll have room to have this on the agenda and workshop format.
Are you talking like a workshop, like when we did with the HDHO, like with all the, people involved in it? Because I think we should every landscaping.
We should definitely have we thought about having like just a planning commission workshop open to the public for sure, but also doing that just to kind of get our final draft of what we think it should look like, and then take it to the public for a public workshop outside of a regular planning commission meeting, something like what you're talking about, like an open house where we'd invite all, the landscapers, the stakeholders, just general public to provide feedback on what we've come up with. Yeah. Does that sound good?
Yeah, more the merrier. I think we should really get all the landscapers involved. So
yeah,
if you want a pre-meeting before that, yeah, sure.
Yeah, Katie did meet with a couple landscapers already, like one-on-one, just to get some input from their perspective. So we're headed in that direction.
I think though it would be great to have some kind of a more well advertised workshop with members of the public, landscapers, and also people who aren't landscapers. Imagining somebody who might be just working on their own house or something, to really, like Jeff and I were talking about the importance of using this as an educational opportunity. Like there are going to be some things, best practices that are going to be a learning curve for some folks, and trying to already use the opportunity for feedback as sort of like an initial testing ground for this. Like, is this something that people are willing to sort of like learn and try new things with, and just what's the first kind of feedback that we get from showing them this would be interesting.
Yeah, because what we learned from the city's process is that they've already had to go back and amend at least one time based on after they've kind of put it out into the world and it was implemented. So I think what we're trying to do is, we would like to have like a final-ish draft that we could present to the public to test and see, like, okay, if you were going to actually go and try to get the rebate for the turf buyback program and you wanted to use our ordinance and meet these requirements, does it look feasible, or are there any like red flags to just the lay person that might want to be doing something like this?
Sounds good.
I was reading, I went through were you looking for us to add comments to your Google Docs file? I've kind of read through some of that. Do you want kind of comments on that, or?
Yeah, I would say yes.
Okay.
Right, Katie? We want comments.
At some point, yeah, that would be great. I mean, now could be the time. I do want to mention that there has been a new draft since the one that was sent out the meeting before, but any feedback would be great, and it probably will still be relevant.
When we do have open house style meeting, it might be worth at least notifying the Division of Water Rights and seeing if we could get someone down from Price with their agency, being as they are kind of the gatekeepers of the Flip the Strip program. At least as a courtesy to let them know that we're planning on it, we're writing stuff, and they should be there and taking a look.
Yeah, that's great. We should definitely do that.
Okay. No other comments? We're good. And the next item is the county commission update. Trish defended her dissertation. I didn't actually stay long enough to find out whether they passed or are not up in Logan. Lisa, are you able to fill us in on what happened at the county commission?
Let's see. I recall there was a lot of talk about the budget. For planning and zoning, we didn't really have much on there. Well, we had the ADO applications that needed to get extensions. There was just one left on the agenda that last meeting that was approved for their extension. But we didn't have anything else. Yeah, so no other planning and zoning items were on the agenda. And I don't recall any other items that would have been related to our topics, but I could be missing something.
Hey.
Okay. Because it has been 2 county commission meetings since our last planning commission. That's right. I forgot. So there was a discussion where they opened the public hearing or voted?
They voted.
They voted to deny the Kimberly rezone. That's right. My memory is being jogged now. There was a vote 4-2, I believe is what it was. And so they denied the Kimberly rezone. That was a rezone to go to, you might want to talk about it. You have more knowledge in your off the top of your head.
So this property was located at the corner of Mesa and Spanish Valley Drive, and the request was, you had heard it in a previous public hearing, to go from large lot residential to small lot residential in hopes of the applicant submitting a subdivision application for 9 lots and the county commission did deny that, mostly for awaiting the outcome of the future land use map that we've kind of come across before. So that was the outcome of that public hearing. Oh, and additionally, we did also have the public hearing for the Arroyo Crossing amended master plan, in which they requested some reduced setbacks, for the cottages and the multifamily development areas, essentially to assist with the development of the cottages. 'Cause it's quite a tight site, so that they could go up to 10 feet to the property line as opposed to 20, which would have really hindered their development. And as well, also requested a reduced internal side yard setback for structures over 2 stories that were listed on the master plan for 30 feet, and they requested 20 because 30 really wasn't in line with anything else within that development. They did also propose to keep the project boundary buffer that was previously approved, so around the corner of the property, they would still be maintaining that 20-foot side yard setback. So that was the other.
And that was approved.
It was not, we're gonna be having the action item for that on the 19th. So the public hearing was opened during that last meeting, and then the action item will be on the 19th, where they will choose.
Okay, we're moving toward the public hearing at this point. Jenna, you're gonna give us a few comments, little report first.
As
If I
a
understand the process.
staff report for the rezoning today?
Yes.
Okay.
For the rezone.
I'm gonna go ahead.
Go.
Do the class. Check if we can share the screens. So I'm just gonna highlight here the property requesting the rezone while I provide that staff report for you. Applicant is requesting an approval of a general rezone application. Subject parcel is currently located in large lot residential zoning district. The applicant has submitted a request for a general business zoning district for the purpose of aligning the existing commercial use on the property with the zoning district in which such use would be a permitted right. The subject parcel is 3.13 acres and is currently home to several permitted structures, including a single-family dwelling, a shop structure, an office trailer structure, and several storage containers. Surrounding uses include single-family dwellings, vacant parcels, and the Packard Commercial Distributing Company towards the front of Spanish Valley Drive. The current business in operation at the property is Moab Heat and Cool. This business operation consists of the assembly and repair of HVAC appliances. For Land Use Code Article 10 definitions, this use would be a permitted use in the category of limited retail sales and services, which allows for the repair of household appliances. While the limited repair, sales, and services is not a permitted use in the LLR zoning district, according to the permitted use chart, it would be permitted in general business. As such, the applicant has submitted the general rezone application. Regarding the history, the Moab Heat and Cool business previously conducted operations at 1105 Highway 191 in a highway commercial zoning district. In February of 2020, the applicant began moving some operations out of the 1105 Highway 191 location. And in March of 2021, a sign was observed on the door of the shop indicating that the business operations had relocated to 1540 Spanish Valley Drive, the subject lot. A repair business in operation within an LLR zoning district is not permitted. Business operations commenced at the 1540 Spanish Valley Drive location prior to obtaining the required zoning use approval or necessary business licensing for the commercial use. At the end of June 2021, a land use violation complaint was received by the code enforcement officer for the property, citing unapproved commercial use of the residential lot. At that time, the subject lot consisted of a primary residential dwelling unit and a residential shop accessory structure. At that time, the shop structure was the location of many of the fabrication activities of the Moab Heat and Cool business at that time. In response to the complaint, the planning department investigated the historic use of the property and was informed that the property had previously been a sheet metal company named M&M Sheet Metal. Based on the existing and historic residential use there, that would have been considered a non-conforming use because it was not permitted in the residential zoning district. The land use code states that to maintain non-conforming status, such non-conforming use must be in operation since the time of that use first became non-conforming without abandonment. And per the land use code, abandonment is defined as involving the actual use of discontinuance, regardless of the intent of the non-conforming property. Any non-conforming use that is discontinued for or that remains vacant for a period of 6 months shall be considered to have been abandoned. Any non-conforming use that is moved from the premises shall also be considered abandoned. In the 1990s, the M&M Sheet Company went out of business and the residential use of the lot was retained. According to land use code, the 30-year gap in the property as a non-conforming use would constitute abandonment and would require that the future use be in accordance with the land use code, which use would be a single-family dwelling. The information collected for the code violation determined that the subject lot was in violation of the land use code permitted uses within a large lot residential zoning district. In late September of 2021, the applicant approached the planning department for a signature on their business license for a new location on Spanish Valley Drive at the subject lot. A change in business a change in business location would require the approval of a business license application with updated address. Approval of a business license includes the review and approval from several departments, including the planning and zoning. In consideration of a business license, the planning department evaluates the business use and verifies that the requested use is permitted within that zoning district it's located. At that time, knowing the in-process code violations for the property, the planning department described the options for the property owner to come into compliance. The department explained that because the property was zoned to large lot residential and the commercial use was not permitted, the alternative options included 1, apply for a rezone to correct the zoning that would allow the use, or 2, being a primary dwelling unit existed on the property, they could possibly be approved as a home occupation in accordance with the land use code 3.3.2G for home occupation. The applicant chose to move forward with the home occupation approval so that business could continue without delay. At that time, the planning department discussed the home occupation requirements in detail with the applicant. The applicant reviewed those requirements carefully and signed the business license application with the understanding that violation of the terms of the home occupation business license would be a violation of land use code. The relevant sections of the land use code for home occupation include the following. The use must be compatible with the surrounding residential uses. The home occupation may not adversely affect the integrity of those residential uses. The home occupation may only contain 1 employee or may only employ 1 resident and 1 additional employee. There shall be no visible storage of equipment, materials, or vehicles with more than 2 axles. The home occupation has to completely be conducted within the principal residential building or accessory structure, and no equipment can be used that creates undue noise, vibration, electrical interference, smoke, particulate matter, excessive power demands, or odors beyond the property boundaries. Since the issuance of the home occupation business license, there have been several reported complaints related to the business activity on the lot. Complaints included reports of commercial vehicular traffic traveling through the property at a high rate of speed, causing the distribution of dust and noise beyond the property boundary, trash and debris not being contained on the property, and general commercial business operations that were not viewed as compatible with the surrounding residential neighborhood. In response to the complaints, the code enforcement official and the planner one at the time conducted a site visit to verify the activities being reported. Several violations of the home occupation standard were identified, including the following. The business employed multiple staff on site, storage of material throughout the property and not within a permitted structure, and a general consensus that the observed operations were not compatible with the surrounding residential neighborhood. A voluntary compliance agreement was put into place with the applicant on April 27th of 2023 that required the property owner to apply for a rezone to correct the zoning district. That compliance agreement required the applicant to submit a complete rezone application by June 30th of 2023. While outside of that agreement date, all application materials were received by the planning department and the rezone application is being considered today. The applicant is requesting general business zoning for retail sales and service. That I'm going to continue on to the required improvements if it were to be approved. So the current rezone request doesn't require any site improvements. If the rezone were approved as a new non-residential use, the applicant would be required to submit a site plan review application. In order to obtain a site plan review approval, the plan would need to demonstrate all requirements of Article 6 in the Land Use Code related to development standards. Prior to the issuance of an updated business license, the applicant would be required to come into compliance for the use. This would require the construction of any required site improvements identified during that site plan review application. That site plan application would be reviewed by the Grand County Development Review Team, which includes county engineer and other agencies, which would review parking, landscaping, outdoor lighting, drainage of the lot, as well as buffering and compatibility standards. Some improvements that were identified during an initial review of the application were the requirement to designate and improve parking spaces that would have to be properly drained and surfaced with concrete, asphalt, permeable pavers, or other hardened surface. Off-street parking would have to be free of weeds, drained, and also surfaced, and the applicant would be required to add the hardened surface to all parking areas. The minimum driving surface width would have to be confirmed as met and 20 feet is anticipated. And then additionally, screening would be required where the development occurs within 50 feet of an adjacent property within the large lot residential zoning district. So ultimately, Article 10 of the Land Use Code defines development as anything that would, and it gives a large list of options, and the key one being if it would change the intensity of use of land. So obviously a change from a residential use to a commercial use would call that development because it's changing the intensity. So the property owner would be required to buffer the surrounding property, buffer the property lines from the surrounding area. Ultimately, the future land use map has not identified this location as an area that would be suitable for mixed commercial uses. And then regarding just the application, it does meet the Grand County Land Use Code. They completed a full application and everything was considered, including the public noticing required. In the staff report, I did include staff's version of a review regarding the issues for consideration when you're considering public hearing for a rezone. So that is included for you as well as a narrative provided by the applicant's review as well. Any questions for me?
So no questions on the report.
Clarify.
Yeah, Jenna, I'm looking through the packet here, and earlier on it mentions that Moab Heat and Cool moved their commercial operation from an address, I think that was on 191,
Correct.
to this 1570 address. And that happened in March of 2021. But then in the correspondence, the application review letter from Moab Heat and Cool, they reference that they've been in this location at 1570 for the last 7 years, since January 2016. And that's consistent with the business entity registration with the State Chamber of Commerce. So I'm just wondering what's going on there. When did they actually start conducting business at the subject parcel?
Which are you saying is consistent?
The 2016 is when their documents on the state website.
Just going on the information that our office had since we came on staff in 2021, it was my understanding that the accessory structure on the property was being used as a shop, but that the residential dwelling use was the permitted use that was retained after the non-conforming status was abandoned.
Okay. Okay, I think I get it.
Was it
Happy to answer more.
in the future land use map, is the property, it's like a flag lot. Is the future land use map have the lot in front of it as a mixed use or
General business.
yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at. Do we have a copy of future
I mean,
land
the
use map?
current zoning is general business right there, as you can see, the zoning
Right.
map. And I don't recall if the future land use map has really contemplated this area yet, whether
I
or
thought
not.
we had kind of identified that as that not that lot, but that area in general.
Well, we definitely identified the area right around Mill Creek, the intersection there with
Right.
Mill Creek and Spanish Valley Drive as an emerging node with where, mixed use commercial, neighborhood compatible.
Yeah, I
would
thought we
be-
had identified that as emerging node.
I don't know how far out on Spanish Valley Drive that actually went, but yeah, I don't think it actually contemplates that very much at this point.
If we could come back to your question just a touch. Additionally, from our information in our office, we did not show, nor did the clerk's office show an active business license at that location.
Right.
On Utah Business Search, that's the Division of Corporations and Corporate Code. They've been registered there with the state with a business license at this 1540 address since 2016.
Okay.
So there's some, what they've told the state, what we know here at the county, and where does the business exist is the question, like legally.
Right. Yeah, because the business license application that came to us was a renewal for business license or
It would have been a new location, so.
a new location. Yeah.
So
There's some
the
discrepancy
information
there.
There, is it just gathered via the applicant through their personal reporting?
No, this is, I can't really see it, like try and show you on my tiny little screen, but they have a state business license as well as a county business license.
It's a double.
Thank you.
And it's their construction business license. Doesn't mean that they have the correct business license for the right. In the county,
Thank you.
they just got
Clarifying
it.
that.
That's what it is.
And I have a clarifying question. The future land use map doesn't show, the FLUP doesn't show that this is an area to be developed, right?
No, like I was saying, I don't think that the future land use map has really focused on what this area would be for the, I think we've been focusing on the Mill Creek and Spanish Valley intersection as an area where this would be like not even general business, but more just neighborhood compatible mixed use would be appropriate, but it doesn't actually extend out onto Spanish Valley Drive like that.
And I was actually probably referring to the last one. So you're.
Oh, you're talking about from 2020, from
Yes.
2012?
Yes, was it designated?
Do we have that in the staff report?
It's not designated
I
as
don't-
a rural center, so it would have been, I believe, and it's still residential infill. If it had been identified as a rural center, it would have been able to range in size from 5 to 30 acres, probably measuring out from Mill Creek and Spanish Valley, but it's not in there as a rural center, I'm certain.
Yeah, there's a statement in the staff report that just covers conformance with the general plan. And the 2030 general plan, I should mention, the future land use map is basically is just carried over from 2012. It didn't change, so.
Any other questions?
I just have a concern about the driveway. If that's gonna be a commercial area, even if you put it in the new area, the zoning or general plan map for future zoning. Just what I was looking at, and it didn't show up as well on my map once I printed it, but that's a 30-foot grade from the highway to the top of that property. And that road, that driveway, it's not even a road, would never be able to be developed into a road to meet a commercial zone. So I'm just worried about the commercial zoning of the property at this point, even if you choose it to be an area that could get into that new map. I don't know that that would be a good place to put a new map, just general information.
Noted for sure.
Because that is, I mean, just from the information we have on the map, there's a lot of grades up there, a lot of grade.
Yeah, the driveway goes,
Clear up and then
Vertical
grades
up.
down from the bottom.
Yeah.
From the top, there's not a lot of room on top.
Right.
so.
it's good to know. Do we, at this point, would we have anything from the applicant?
Sure, we do
If
have
they
the
wanted
applicant
to?
here, if they would like to speak as well. Should we?
Should we leave the hearing not yet open? As part of the initial. Okay. Please state your name when you come up.
Thank you. I'm Jared Shumway, representing Wappy Pool and Roseanne Nickel and Andy Martin. I think she's stated it pretty clearly that we're operating what would be cool at that 54 Spanish Valley Drive address. I think the requirements for the rezone would negate most of the issues that are probably going about as far as the hard surface, keeping down the dust, and a privacy or a screening fence. Those probably most of the issues that are here. Being Cool has been operated in Moab at different locations since 2005. We employ about 10 people. We do maintenance and service and do construction and all over the southeastern part of the state. We'd like to continue to do that. That's all I have to say at this point. I'm curious what the complaints are.
Any questions of the applicant representative?
You've been, the point that I'm getting at with the consistency of dates and years, I'm just trying to get a picture of how long you've been at this current location in like earnest commercial operation, driving your vehicles, conducting your business, storing your equipment, and just trying to get an idea of when about these complaints began to surface, trying to understand, I think, paint a clear picture if this is one of those things where this has been, regardless of abandonment, yada yada, an existing, for how long this condition has existed versus how long it's been noticed and recognized, I guess. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
In 2016, January 2016, we had our office at 105 South Highway 191, right, this class there. And then I remember the year was 2020, 2021. The rent was going up and we were trying to figure out how to, and working from two locations was very difficult for me to keep track of things. So that was the rationale. So in 2016, the shop became inexistent and we started working out of the shop exclusively for building metal and inventory and things like that. And like I said, the paperwork will show better than my memory when the office moved to 1540 Spanish Valley Drive.
I see. That is a more clear distinction. There's the office where the administration is conducted versus where you have equipment, overhead, and supplies, and where you mobilize your work. Right. Two different locations. That makes sense. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. Okay, I'm not going to open the public hearing. We didn't really have a sign-up sheet out there, but if someone would like to come forward and give some information, that'd be great. Yeah, that's great. And don't forget to say your name.
My name is Jen Ettercott, and I live next to, I couldn't get that map up there.
Yeah, make sure that you're in the speaker there.
Yeah, I live right next to 1540 Spanish Valley Drive, where Moab Heating and Cooling is operating. I've been watching them operate their business, and I for 4 or 5 years. And about 5 years ago, I initiated a process and started trying to draw this to the attention of the Planning Commission, which, as everyone here probably knows, went belly up, and they ignored me completely for a couple of years. So I couldn't get anyone to respond to what was going on over there. But the office trailer really is when the real action picked up, and that happened about 1.5 years ago. Okay, and so there's a few things I'm going to point out about that lot. Most of it's steeper than town space, and half of it's a flash flood gully. It's an absurd place to think about paving or anything else. As Mary pointed out, the road is never going to be illegally pavable. It's a flag lot. If you look at this, if you look at the picture, that thing is surrounded, there's only one place where it comes into contact with.
I just put
But
you
yeah,
up with
disappeared.
You see the lot there? Yeah.
The lines
Oh,
all
right,
the way up.
yeah. This is the only portion of that land that actually adjoins Spanish Valley Drive. I don't know, what is that, 35 feet? And it just gets steeper, steeper, steeper. And the only flat spot here is right here, right here. This is all flash flood belt. It runs. And I've watched it many times run. My property's right here. I see it all. I said, there's no way in the world you're gonna put any kind of privacy along here. I mean, if this is up high, these lots are all on the same level, the fence would have to be 30 feet high. They're using this right to the fence line, and this is all steep right here. This is all hillside. This is all steep and house. You see this is flash flood going right here. It comes running through my property. I've disturbed the bottom, so nothing I'm doing impacts that before it's ever, it's natural. This is all natural vegetation. This is all flash flood. So what is that? Third flood floods twice, 3 times a summer. This right here, you see, it's kind of vegetated in. That's steep. That's steep. You're not going to do anything here. So the tiny little bit of usable part right here is right there. That's all. The rest of that's worthless. And so you're gonna take that and put it all commercial. Doesn't make any sense at all. Look at this is all residential. Bam, 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 bam. This is all residential. The only part of this that is resident, that is commercial is right there. That tiny little part. The rest of this is surrounded by residences.
Mr. Nethercore, I hate to interrupt, but nothing is being captured by the.
The mic
audio.
is over there.
It's a public.
In terms of the
I
virtual.
gotta say, well, it didn't.
No, but
I had to point that out because I didn't bring a map, but it's important to understand that most of that lot is not usable. That you couldn't put anything at the bottom. I've seen it run this deep, flash flood come down that. It always has, it drains Hidden Valley. Well, as most of us know, Hidden Valley is a long drainage, but that hits a ribbon. There's no way you can have, there was trailers flowing away down there. I stood and watched it. I've got pictures. This is not appropriate. This is not appropriate for a commercial. It'll be a nightmare for this county forever if that ever turns commercial. All the residents, there's lots of new houses up there. The value of property, when you end up with a commercial lot next to a commercial lot, residential property goes down. The value of the commercial property goes up. The value of all the residential land goes down around it. So all those people around that lot, the value of their property is going to go down. Those are new homes up there. These people aren't going to appreciate it.
And I should only do this. We should probably try to limit ourselves to about
I could go
3
on.
minutes.
I've been at
That's-
that, I've been living
No.
this for 30 years.
I understand. I should have mentioned it before you came up, but we should try to keep ourselves to about 3-minute presentation. If you want to finish up in about 30 seconds, that'd be great because you may have other points.
Yeah, I think I've had a less list here, trying to keep myself down here, but mostly I think I've covered the main points. I think it's inappropriate, and I think it would be a big mistake if that got changed.
Great. Thank you very much.
I can do it. Time.
My name is Shirley French, and if we can have that map up again, I would appreciate it. My 3 minutes doesn't start until the
Till
map's
the map
up.
appears.
That's right.
Here's now
I'll
the
time it.
timekeeper.
Just gotta stay where you are though, so the
That
microphone
map
can
appears
catch you.
again. First off, I would like to say thank you for the opportunity to speak here. My property, and I will come back to it, is right here. My property butts up against their driveway, or what they call their driveway.
How about I can use the computer pointer for that.
Okay.
We need to be sure to capture everything on.
Anyway, I live at 1585 Rocky Road. And my property butts up against their so-called driveway. For the last 2 or 3 years, they have been encroaching on my property. They used the back of my property to turn around their trucks, the semis, and all of the big flatbeds that come in there to deliver things. They have not been operating within the law. I've seen it. I live there. I lived there since 2013. My husband and I made a commitment to Moab and to our community and our neighborhood. And that has cost us a lot of money because we purchased that property. When we purchased that property, Moab Heat and Cool was not operating over there. Now, there was a shock that we were very much aware of, but it was not intrusive in any way, shape, or form. And it's only been about the last 2 years, even though he can't remember, it's only been about the last 2 years that they've started operating over there. And I'm probably one of the first and main complainants about it. That road is gravel, it's steep. They tear up and down that road. We've had a traffic camera out. We have 30 to 40 trips per day up and down a dirt road. The dust billows, the noise. I have elderly neighbors with breathing problems that is only exacerbating. We have tried to work with them over and over and over. My husband's talked to Mr. Shumway numerous times about the problems over there, and they've done nothing. They have not done one thing to mitigate any of that. It's just been so frustrating to put that kind of money into our home. And for our neighbors that have that kind of investment in their homes, to have that intrusive, disgusting business over there.
Great, thank
All right,
you,
thanks.
thank you very much.
And I have
Appreciate
a
it.
picture on my phone of what I look out at now. Would you like to see it before I close?
Let me add this. Just keep in mind, we will also have a public hearing at County Commission, and you will have the opportunity, anyone can write in public comments to planning@grandcountyutah.net. You can provide some photographic evidence, and then feel free to also call the office if you would like some additional detail after the meeting.
Well, and I gotta say, I started calling and complaining about this over 2 years ago, and it's taken that long to get to this point.
Next. And do try to hold it to 3 minutes if possible. I do want to hear people too. Thank you.
A lot of points have already been made about this. I've spoken to Randy.
Sir, what is your
the owner
name?
of the property that Jared.
What is your
Please
name,
state your
sir?
name.
Jim French, 1585 Rocky Road. One of the major problems are the vehicles that go up and down this road. I put a trail camera out in a 1 week period. It triggered 494 times, and that's including Saturday and Sunday. So we've probably got an average of about 50 vehicles a day, include large freight trucks, UPS trucks, FedEx trucks, garbage trucks. The vehicles owned by the employees plus their work vehicles. One of the problems we've had is the garbage that blows onto our property. I can show you pictures of garbage after one of the wind events we have quite frequently. If I have to pick up all the garbage I had to pick up. They've been trespassing on our property. I called the sheriff about that. They said the only way we can do anything is to have proven boundaries by surveying their property. So we spent several $100s to survey our property. And it turns out that the road, the 140-yard road from Spanish Valley up to their property, is 140 yards to their gate, was encroaching up to 7 feet onto our property. At its narrowest point, it's only 15 feet wide. And I believe for general business, it has to be at least 20 feet wide. So we've got that going on. Part of their gate going into their property is actually on our property. Spoken to them several times about the dust, about the way the guys go up and down the road. I've called the sheriff about codes, noise ordinance violations. The sheriff says we can't do anything because it's commercial property. But it's sitting in the middle of all of our residential properties. We're constantly dealing with dust all over our vehicles, all over our patio furniture. I have solar panels. I have to go out once a week in the summer when it's dry and rinse them off. And it's just inappropriate for them to be out there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And again, yes, indeed, send a letter to the county commission, have your pictures there when this comes up in front of them, if it comes up in front of them, and also come to those meetings to testify. Thank you. And your name, please.
My name's Tim Jordan. I live at 1506 Rocky Road. My problem's a little bit different. If this property goes through and becomes commercial property, and they go ahead and use the property, I mean, I can understand where they're coming through or from also. But later on, let's say 5 years down the road, if now it's zoned commercial, instead of being worth $500,000, it's worth $5 million. They sell that. Well, there goes my neighborhood, because there goes a Holiday Inn. We have a great neighborhood right now, old people and young people. And we do really good there. I just hate to see this go in, because I know what people do with commercial property. I've lived here 50 years and I've watched them take this town down. And God, this is my last stand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Rex Underwood. We live at 1612 Rocky Road, and we were able to get a really nice lot near the top there about 14 years ago. We built a house there 10 years ago. At the time, Rocky Road was a quiet dead end. We thought it was a residential street. 7 years ago, Emory Telecom got a hold of the land at the top of Rocky Road and made their operation headquarters. They built a large building, and they put all their vehicles and trucks and lifts and cable and installed lots of bright lights on their building. Ever since, we get to watch and listen to trucks go down and up Rocky Road, morning, noon, and night, big trucks. They also have rented and purchased the bottom lot of Rocky Road for more trucks and equipment. They keep digging up Rocky Road in Kalina Heights to lay their cables to their headquarters. Both Kalina Heights and Rocky Road's pavement is in bad shape. I know this is not about this, but I mean, Emory Telecom's a big business. What are they doing in the residential area? They could easily put a short frontage road to the 191, just like all the other businesses. It'd be perfect, save gas and time, not to mention the vehicles. I wondered how they pulled this off. I don't know how they did that. I'm not sure. But now it seems there's another business, which is this Moab Heat and Coal that want to rezone so they can operate legally now. And obviously they don't really have the room for that. So the question is, are we a nice residential neighborhood, or can private property owners do whatever they want? So thank you for the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I have coffee. Anybody want a coffee? Sure. Put them on up. We can grab it then.
Yes. Next person who'd like to speak.
That's if I can talk, but
That was good.
So my name is Amanda Jacobs, and my mom lives on Rocky Road. And I just wanted to point out that, number one, it seems as though this is very clearly a case that this business has been operating out of compliance with the legal parameters for multiple years now. Not only that, but they have no regard for the neighborhood. I see the trash. I don't live there with my mom, but when I'm over there, I see the cars speeding up and down this driveway. I see the trash. I see the dust. I see the tracks at the back of my mom's lot where they've been driving on her property. So in my mind, it's really difficult to understand how The answer to their problem of compliance is by having this rezone happen at the cost of everybody living in that neighborhood. The other thing that I wanted to point out is that most often in my life, I have to meet deadlines. If I'm applying for something, I have to meet a deadline. And it was stated when this was presented by staff that they didn't meet the deadline for this application. They turned it in, they completed everything, but it wasn't by the deadline that was set forward for them. So the other thing that I want to say before I leave this table is that the fact that it's been so difficult to bring their company into compliance, even in these past few years that they haven't even been legally operating there, it's really difficult for me to conceive that all of a sudden, because this property is rezoned, that all of those compliance issues are going to go away. Like, why would you be thinking that it's going to be any easier to work with them as a business in a residential neighborhood when they have the rezone? I personally, based on what I've seen in the last 3 years, I don't have a lot of faith that that's actually going to happen. So thank you for your time, your consideration.
Thank you.
My name is Donna Jordan. I live at 1506 Rocky Road. A lot of you recognize me as I've worked with you all. My problem is having a commercial business in the middle of our neighborhood. It's a quiet residential neighborhood. I don't understand why they would want to impact our neighborhood with all the houses around and a business. That's it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, then I'm going to close the public hearing and entertain a motion. Close discussion. And then we'll have discussion.
I'll move that we close the public hearing portion of this and move on to discussion.
No, we need a motion now.
To
Public
approve or
hearing is
disapprove.
now closed.
Okay.
We opened it already, right?
Right.
We opened and now we're just looking for the motion.
I'll make a motion that we send a negative recommendation on to the county.
I second that.
We're now ready for discussion. And if you'd like, you could mention whatever your reasons are to start for the first and seconders, and then we can move on to just kind of general discussion.
So over the last, I guess 3 minutes times 7 people who've come up and spoke, 21 minutes, half hour roughly. We've heard some very, I would say, well-spoken and very heartfelt comments about the current use of the property, the non-conforming use of the property. And we've had none in support other than the gentleman that's actually using the property in the non-conforming fashion. You know, in my opinion, the reason that we have zoning codes is for exactly issues like this, where non-conforming use can have a very detrimental effect on the neighborhood. So that's the reason that I raised a motion to send a negative vote on to the county.
There's 3 major compelling reasons to deny, or we are not denying, but to give an unfavorable recommendation to the council. One, it doesn't meet the general plan. And apparently there is a new map that's coming out, but it's not here yet. Second is they've outgrown their home occupation. If there's a home occupation on the property, there are criteria that we follow when we do a home occupation. That home occupation has been outgrown. And generally when that happens, it's because of commercial use. There are many home occupations in the valley that do and have outgrown their home occupation and had to go into a commercial zone. It's basically what it's for. The third compelling reason is what was mentioned earlier by one of the complainants is there are many things that can go in that zone district. They could leave tomorrow, that zone's there forever. And if those particular uses, like group living and daycares and educational facilities and government facilities, institutions and churches, that's a crazy place to be putting something like that. It's one, under the circumstances that have to do a site plan. Are they going to have to plow down the whole that whole area? Is it going to turn into something that we would be comfortable having in our county in an area like that? And this was also brought up by one of the community people. That access is crazy, and commercial trucks on that access, and not even if Moab Heat and Cool decides not to do it once it's rezoned, that's got to be a road, and there's no way that can turn into a road. The grade is way too steep. Those are compelling reasons not to send that on with a favorable recommendation.
I was really hoping that all of you were coming here in support of Jared, but no one is. But I think we, to me, on our future land use map, we're seeing that like we have services that people need in this town that it's hard to find commercial avenues for it, and I think this just speaks to the need of thinking stuff like that, because I'm sure, I don't know the economics, but I think having a shop like this is less profitable than building maybe like a hotel on highway commercial. If it wasn't having that long driveway and pushed off all the neighbors, it'd be like, yeah, you're kind of in this commercial zone. But I'm really sympathetic to this, but I'd have to go on a no as well on that.
I have a really hard time when things like this come up here, because we need skilled people and businesses in our community, and it's very hard. Like Mary pointed out, there's a point at which your home business gets larger, and I really don't think that our system should punish someone for operating a good business and watching it grow. If the testimony from the community here had not been present and not articulated their concerns so well, I would probably be leaning toward a favorable recommendation for this rezone. But there are a couple of things. I specialize in land management and property rights and title type issues. And I can zoom in way far on an aerial photograph and see those tire tracks in other people's lots. And I'm like, man, that's not very neighborly, and I think indicative of a tactile piece of evidence for these communities' concerns, because I'm also like sensitive to NIMBY, and folks who, but I also look at what's being said, and I'm sympathetic for those people in the Rocky Road community. Looking at the map overall, they're kind of getting squeezed in by commercial lots on both sides, and that's got to be exhausting. And then I'm also I'm looking at Packard Wholesale and all the big trucks that are right. Thank you. Not used to the microphone. I'm sorry, guys. I'm looking at Packard Wholesale and all the big trucks that are right there on Spanish Valley Drive, and I'm thinking, there's some large use there already. I think the writing's on the wall what the neighborhood wants here, but I gotta say, actively working through this in my head. And if I do choose to vote not in favor of a recommendation, it's not going to be with all of my heart, because this is a tough one.
For sure, for sure. And I think for me, I might as well voice an opinion here. It's probably not the way I like zoning done. So here we have a non-conforming use. The idea on a non-conforming use is it wasn't kind of in conformity to what was being done in the area. Usually it's somebody who's started their business early on. And that then they have a thing where, well, you take time off and you're going to abandon your non-conforming use. Great, now we can go back to having this zoned like other properties are around it, to kind of violate that and put a business in there and then say, well, the business exists, because I'm sympathetic with the business now being there, but now you just say, well, the business exists, so we really ought to rezone it. There would probably be no issue if the business didn't already exist there in terms of a claim for let's rezone this particular area and make it commercial given where it is. So I just don't like this way of doing planning and zoning, and it's not included in the future land use plan, which should have does have some authority with me. So I'm probably against this recommendation to rezone. Do we have any other comments?
Can I, just because I'm wrapping my head around a lot, can I ask staff some more elaborate questions?
Certainly.
You know, one of the gentlemen mentioned this, there's clearly some sort of wash or riparian corridor along the east side of this property, and I chased it around on the air photos a little bit. What is the characteristics of that wash? Is it perennial or ephemeral? What are we talking about here? Can you verify like how much usability? Rezoning a lot commercial obviously does beg the question, like, are we going to get a small bed and breakfast? What kind of use? And what about the impacts to, talk to me about ecology for a moment.
I would say that I couldn't speak to those exact details. What I would tell you is that this application went through the development review process where the county engineer evaluated it. And he stated that for site plan approval, they would be required to record a drainage easement through the center of the property. He mentioned no other larger concerns with development of the lot, but ultimately any site plan approval application for commercial use at the property at all will be completely evaluated during that time. So any other constraints would be mitigated and evaluated.
Dan, that did mention a drainage easement.
Yes, he did. It would be a requirement.
Yeah, and I just want to add too, when you look at the parcel, you can't see the topography on there very well at all, but the building footprint or the buildable land is really just at the top there on the hill. And then, yeah, it slopes down pretty steep into the gully where there's drainage. And I think that the drainage area would just be like considered unbuildable. That's probably where Dan was talking about doing the easement. Putting the easement.
Yeah, and that bottom portion of the property, it may be unbuildable for certain kind of commercial structures, but potentially, and I'm speaking off the cuff, but maybe accessory structures that would be usable for this business for other purposes.
I'm sorry, I'm being blind, but here on the dependent resurvey, there's a contour line here. Do you guys know what the contour interval is I'm looking at? Is that 20 feet? Is that 5 feet? 20? 5 feet, thank you.
Any other comments? I guess we're ready to vote. I don't know, shall we use this motion that is on here? I know the recommendation is to send an unfavorable recommendation. So I think if I state it more formally, I move to forward an unfavorable recommendation to the county commission for the general rezone request from large lot residential to general business for the property located at 1540 Spanish Valley Drive based on the following considerations. there's a list. That's the essence of what we're voting on, sending an unfavorable recommendation for the rezone. How many people are in favor of sending an unfavorable recommendation? That's all 5. Okay. Getting down to I guess we are down to voting for recommendation for new planning. And is Steve not online, of course? Would somebody?
He might be working
yeah.
on it. I did mention to him that we would need his
Yeah,
attendance.
come on in.
Uh-huh. And so just being, oh, there we go.
There we go.
He's coming on right now.
So Steve, we're going to let you take over the meeting, and Jerry and I are probably going to go sit at a chair down there.
Steve, we don't have Sana here, and I'm gonna reach out to her and see if she can get online. But we will probably just want to change the order of the interviews and start with OB or Jerry.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll reach out to her and hop on.
Okay, maybe we can just give it just a couple minutes here. My plan was to ask one question, then each candidate answers, and then ask the second question, and then kind of alternate who takes the lead. So that way the first candidate doesn't get the short straw and have to answer everything first.
Is Sana also kind of running for, is Sana also in the mix for this?
She is an applicant, but she is not here. So that's why I was just saying I'm going to try to reach out to her and see if she's planning on coming.
Yeah, so everybody is up there. Situation. Is design judges.
When Packard went in, they were a very small version, and they didn't go in a commercial zone. It was back in the day when back in the century.
Down here, it was usually less set up.
But when he put his new phases,
This is when I wanted to get a job.
of course, and so.
Well, there was one time I was a, and I was
Sure. But he got there at a very early time.
Yeah, I'm sensitive.
And the other two parcels were when Dave Cousins rezoned. I mean, made his own subdivision.
Saw that.
He rezoned those two generated during that kind of subdivision. And that was also pretty long ago. Long time ago. So, those parcels are great, but they're part of rezoning parcels.
be willing to
commercial uses have
without me.
direct access to them.
And then I was gonna have.
Yeah, this just doesn't have that
Response
direct
was,
access.
It's the panhandle thing. Interesting thing to notice.
But the roadway is so steep. That he's get.
I mean, it's an HVAC, company, right? It's a mom and pop HVAC. company. That use. Like, I had a big correct up there, to put some mitigations in place for his company. But the zoning applies to whoever. You know? Right. And it's just like, that one makes me sick. That one's just like.
I know it's sad.
Guys, I'm not sure, just because we're not exactly sure of the sound intent yet, it doesn't make sense.
She's on her
We're not
way.
confident yet.
Santa's on her way. We can just wait a couple more minutes.
Which did hurt, I like to say.
Still watching Mark.
What's that?
Sorry, Elisa, did you say she's on her way in will be just a couple minutes?
Yes, that's what I said. If you're okay waiting, Steve.
Yeah, we can wait.
It's like, who gave me that? I am like.
There's one on every chair.
No, you don't.
Just hey, I'm in Trisha's too.
I used to accidentally hit it on the and the cops come running.
Oh, that's the issue. That's the issue.
Okay, you're pretty good. This side.
Is that business part?
But this side.
Yeah.
Hey, y'all, quick question. When we did this last time, did we ask all 7 questions to each of the candidates, or did we choose, say, 4? Any thoughts or opinions on that?
Do you recall?
I think we did alter. I think we did alter one and ask in a different order, like Steve is doing, I believe.
So alternating one question per applicant. Yeah, I think I remember that's how you did it as well. Yeah. Steve.
Oh, if I can ask you, Steve,
Yeah.
can you hear us in the chamber?
Yes.
I mean, I'm not
Okay, thank you.
relay what they're saying into the mic.
Yeah, it was helpful when Elisa was relaying what they're saying. Whatever OB and Jerry were saying, that was a bit too far away for me to make out clearly.
Right, okay.
You can hear our small talk in the back too.
Yeah, you might want to be more judicious with what you say, Tony. Just kidding.
You know me.
It was all complimentary.
Yeah, so I was just gonna ask Steve. So Steve, would you like to have all 3 of the applicants up at the table and then just alternate each question?
I think so, and that way we can alternate who's asked the question first.
Okay.
I think that seems a bit more fair.
Did everybody get their Santa hat for your happy holiday?
Steve, you can probably hear me now, right?
Oh.
Yeah, Jerry, that was pretty faint though.
Okay, we'll have to go a little closer.
Yeah, that's better.
And we'll move it around.
Well, I'm kind of all for getting this thing going here, unless there's any objections.
You know, you could start with the first question and get
Yeah.
through OB and Jerry, and then I bet by that time Sina will be here, so.
That sounds good. OB, you're on my left, so we're going to start with you. What are the 2 or 3 major issues that you see facing Grand County in terms of planning?
Well, these probably won't surprise you, affordable housing, but I would say widely considered, so I'm very interested in seeing that there is stuff for those people who are moderately affordable all the way down to people who are, the ADO was designed for. but I think it's absolutely one of the major problems. A careful consideration of water and climate change for Graham County. So I think water is an important issue, especially drinking water. And then the impacts of tourism and how we're to ameliorate those impacts are at least three major issues that face us, and we spend a lot of time on. We haven't been spending a lot of time on tourism recently, but we did a lot on noise, et cetera, at one point.
Same question.
Yep, same question. Yeah, like how we're rolling through this efficiently.
Okay. Yeah, so for me, the top 2 or 3 issues affecting the planning commission at this point, or the county in general, as far as the planning commission goes, is for sure affordable housing. And I see that as having 2 parts. One of them is the land use and its impact, and the future land use planning has a big role in improving that, hopefully with some higher densities in certain areas. And basically moving away from discussions like we had here earlier, where we have people negatively affecting zoning changes, towards one where we have more consensus from the community in general with regards to higher density and its effect on affordable housing. The other part of the affordable housing is just the cost of building itself. And from that standpoint, I wish I had some good solutions. I really don't. The average cost for building in this county today, I've been told it's about $400 a square foot, which makes even a small house relatively unaffordable to somebody who's just starting. What we're going to do is go from one to the next to the next.
Okay.
I'm Jerry.
And I'm Obi. Obi, the nickname.
Anyways, I guess if we're going to take any lead from anything, I do like the approach that the city of Moab had, where they were able to reduce some of the per square foot building costs. And perhaps we can look at something like that here too. From a water use standpoint, I agree, Obi, that I would say that's probably issue number 2. Living in a desert, that ought to be pretty obvious. And I like the path that we've been taking with our landscaping ordinance. It's a good next step. I'm sure there's a lot more we can do in that regard as well.
So I just want to let y'all know the Sana, my bad that I had an email drafted to her to let her know about the interviews tonight, and I just noticed, I went back in my email and saw that it didn't get sent. So I apologize. This really, I feel horrible. But so Sana is here on short notice. She wasn't late by her own fault. It was my fault. So I just want to put that out there.
Thanks for that clarification, Elisa. And Sana, am I saying your name correctly? Is it Sana?
Yeah, who's talking?
Steve is
okay.
running the meeting right now. Yeah.
Okay. It was a male voice, but I couldn't figure out who. It's any mouths moving. Okay, so what was the question?
So Sana, the question that the other 2 fellows just answered here, that I'll ask to you as well, is what are the 2 or 3 major issues that you see facing Grand County in terms of planning?
One of the things that I feel adamant about when you're planning a city or development is that we don't want to create things we've moved away from. And for example, many years ago when I worked on the planning and zoning, there was nightly rentals and bed and breakfasts were just really popular and starting to happen. But the problem is people didn't have enough parking. This was before people came with trailers with UTVs and everything else. So this was probably in the late 80s. And a guy from Park City was on the board, and he said, well, why don't you just do what we do in Park City? We charge people for parking. A couple things wrong with that. One is Charlie Steen, if you look back at the records, paid a lot of money that the city continues to get funds for
not having parking meters. We did have parking meters on Main Street at one time, but they were taken out within a year or two. And so that funding obviously would go away. Secondly, I said, do they like paying for parking in Park City? And they said, no. I said, well, why are we creating the thing that you don't like here? So that's one reason. Another thing too is I do have my real estate license. It's not my main income. I am very busy because I've been coming here since the 70s and working here since the 80s, but not actively having my real estate license. I'm 73 years old. I've been buying and selling property and advising people how to do it since I was about 27 years old. So I kind of understand the development and how things work. I do get angry with some of the real estate agents that are opportunists in selling property, and I probably have an inside knowledge of it more than most people because I have access to the MLS. Cane Creek is one example. That went on we knew that development was happening. And they said that they were going to be $200,000 for these little tiny cracker boxes, which are fine because people don't need monster houses. And there is a need for that. They were all tied up within 24 hours. And there were, I don't know, 20, 30, do you remember how many there were there? Quite a few properties. They're all, and so when I looked on the MLS, it was the person who was listing it was also the person who was selling it. So they locked down everything that they put on, with the exception of just a couple of properties. It wasn't finished being built for maybe a year or so. They all jumped up $100,000. So it's that kind of stuff that really annoys me, that someone would get approval for something like that, be an opportunist, and then they're really not. They're actually looking out for their own pocketbook. So when a contractor puts a bid in, they know how much 2x4s will cost, and they know if they've been doing it for a while, they know what the increase is going to be. So they sort of plan for that. So for it to hop up $100,000 within a year when they started to open them up and people started saying, oh, I didn't really want it, or it was a pretend offer. Those kind of things definitely annoy me. And it's kind of hard to turn your own, people in your own business in on that kind of thing. But I'm seeing that happening a little bit more often, and that is annoying to me. So that's one of the things that I'd like to say. Is there a third thing you wanted me to say?
There'll be more questions, but I think that probably is sufficient for that first one. And then
Great, thank you. So we'll start with Jerry on this next question and then keep it kind of going around in the same order. So next question, young adults in Grand County are finding it difficult to afford conventional homes in conventional neighborhoods in Moab. What are your thoughts on alternative zoning practices like mixed use zoning, high density housing, etc.?
My thoughts on alternative zoning practices that would resolve our problems are, absolutely I'm in favor of taking a judicious approach towards doing that. I think as long as we follow the processes that are defined, that the outcome should be positive. Obviously, we need to make some changes. It's, for all the reasons we just talked about, what we've done in the past is not working in today's market. So, my hope is, like I mentioned before, that the future land use map gives us a roadway towards doing some of these different type of approaches. We'll just have to let the process play itself out.
So I'm not 100% sure with what all the updated land codes are. I had heard word that they're planning to allow 4-story hotels in Moab. Whether that's a rumor or not, I don't really know. Originally, the reason they only allowed 3-story buildings was so that you wouldn't cut off the view of people that lived here. So again, you know, why you're creating a thing that you're coming here for. You know, if you're enjoying the view and living here, then, you know, putting a 4-story will turn into 5, 6, you know, whatever story building. I also referenced one of the other things that I forgot to say in the last question, and that was if you're either getting grants or you're going through planning and zoning and requesting that you have affordable housing, then I think there should be something in place that you can only increase a percentage a year after someone's lived there a number of years before you can give astronomical prices for, you know, because what will happen is you'll have someone buy something for 200,000 and then a year later they'll sell it for 300,000. And so that doesn't become affordable. There isn't really much of too many people that live here and work at McDonald's or wherever that can afford that kind of mortgage. So another thing too is we are graduating about 100 children from high school a year. And this has been happening long before I ever came here in the 70s, and it's still 98, 102, whatever, 100. The community of Moab is not growing. What's growing, obviously, is the tourists. And statistics say that there will be less and less people born in the United States, and the growth is going to slow down per capita. With that being said, it's not the people that live here that are paying, that are using all the infrastructures. It's the hotels with water, sewer, and trash, you know, and or parking or whatever. So as far as that goes, the infrastructure, I feel, should be taxed accordingly as opposed to a widespread tax increase. So it's the mill rate that really makes the difference. What the mill rate is, what's times your taxes. And so when you have somebody that is paying a higher interest rate on their house because of the infrastructure that's needed with fire, sewer, water, trash, and the whole 9 yards, it's the little guy that is actually getting hurt by it more than someone who's charging $100 or $200 a night for rental property. So one of my property, I'm a landlord, and so one of my properties is a 3-story building. If anything higher than that, we're going to have to get different fire trucks to reach them, which that infrastructure should be referred or go on to probably anything higher than the equipment that we already have, and not, you know, go towards the person who has a 1-story or 2-story house. So I'm kind of adamant about, you know, you should be putting the fees where they're creating the havoc of creating the infrastructure to the, you know, to that situation. And like I said, I own a property, it's on the 1st floor, but it's a 3-story building. So I would be included in that, what I'm requesting on my infrastructure as well. But I have properties that are 1-story, and it kills me to have to increase their property in their rent every 3 or 4 years and I've renters that have been there 8, 10, 15 years because I made $30 a day when I first came to Moab. So I know how hard it is, you know, to live here in the place that you love, and you know, and then to have outrageous rents that you either have to have a whole bunch of roommates or, you know, get 2 or 3 different jobs. So that's kind of how I feel about it.
In a person of few words, I wanted to answer number 2 is yes. What are your thoughts on alternative zoning practices like mixed use zoning and high density housing? Basically, I'm in favor of trying almost any thing I'd have to say, I'd add to the list alternative dwelling overlay. I think it's an important thing, and I don't think it's yet been tested. I mean, it's been out there now, probably the first passage of this by us, I can't remember, is it 9 months ago or so? I think that's still out there, and I'm still hopeful for it. I do like the fact that we've been conscious of taking the ordinances and modifying them in, because builders have told us problems with the high density housing overlays. Some of them were caused by COVID, but some of them were probably caused by things that we put in there about financing that nobody else caught along the way. So I'm hopeful that might help. And I'm very much for incentives to get builders to do different kinds of things that are affordable and are, kind of put in there so they're clearly affordable. I would really love to see an apartment. Another place like Cinema Court would be terrifically valuable, but of course, we've got to incentivize somebody to do that.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we're going to start with Saina on this one. And also just being mindful of time here, let's each applicant, let's aim for a 2-minute response time. And if there's anybody there in the chambers that could set a 2-minute alarm, and so just when it goes off, candidates know that you should be looking to wrap up your response. My screen's really small here, so I will just trust that somebody there will be able to take care of that. So here's the question, Saina. Is ownership or affordability more important? What would be your philosophy on addressing, what would be your philosophy on addressing the housing crisis? So I guess that's 2 questions.
Affordable housing is in 2 categories. One is a renter and one is a homeowner. And to be honest with you, not everybody needs to live, die, and own a house. And obviously, friends of mine that never owned their own house, they're perfectly happy. I do think that anybody coming into the community usually does need to rent property first before they afford to buy, and unless they have outside income, and then it makes it more affordable to purchase something new. So ownership is affordable or more important. It's really a visual thing. It's not necessarily that it's a cut and dry thing of what's more important, affordable, or what's important.
Yes, I'd probably say that both of them are important. My wife and I probably rented until we were 37. Part of that had to do that we probably lived in literally 10 places from the age of 22 to 37. But ownership's a very nice thing also in terms of building equity. So it's an amazing thing to eventually retire and have housing costs that are paying taxes. So I'd say both are important. They're probably of different importance at different stages of life, but it would be very nice to make sure that people had the opportunity to buy. Part of that's, of course, how much they're earning, and of course, how affordable housing is, and that is in part due to what size it is. But both are vitally important.
From the ownership or affordability question, my answer is, if I'm living in the back seat of my car, affordability is pretty darn important. And if I've got a steady paycheck and some savings, then ownership is pretty darn important. So it really depends on where you're at. I will say this, though, I have 2 kids who are both young adults. One of them just bought a house, another one has not even gone down that path yet. And Boy, I'd sure like to see the day where neither one of them could afford a house in no way. So it's, that's a struggle. I would like to see that. I would love to see that problem solved.
Great, and I think we can start with OB then on this next one. So the next question is, from a planning commission standpoint, can you describe a few key changes that could be made to improve the housing affordability situation in Grand County, and what obstacles might need to be overcome to implement those changes?
Oh, what a great, tough question in many ways, because we've tried so many things. I do think we've done, and so I'm going to probably end up telling you what we've done if I knew better things. I do think it was very important to have willingness to rethink the HDHO and the ADO already. I like the idea. We should probably do it again. It was a courageous thing of Emily to have a forum with the builders, and folks took a lot of heat, got a lot of information about what were obstacles for builders. And of course, if we are kind of future looking, it looks like we may well have a whole series of things that allow people to have increasing density for having affordable housing as we move forward with our new kind of land use code. And I think that's a very important thing, because I don't think it's going to happen without incentives.
So on the two parts of this one as well, I've described a few changes that could be made to improve the housing situation and what obstacles might there be. That first question, a few changes, I'd like to break that up into two pieces. Number one, there's a big item coming along, which is future land use map. Hopefully that's the big gorilla, and we make some big progress there. But the other thing I'd like to make sure that the Planning Commission accomplishes is to keep in mind all the smaller, more incremental steps that have seemed to help along the way, which are the things that OB just mentioned. So even though we'll focus on the future land map, keep in mind those other things. The obstacles, the biggest obstacle coming with any of these changes is what happens on the edges of the change, right? And we saw some of that today. A change was requested. The people around the perimeter of that change just they greatly objected. And so I think that's really that's kind of the crux of the problem is how do we move forward and resolve some of these issues with things like higher density and alternative dwellings, and do it in a way that preserves the sanctity of the neighborhoods, I would say. So that would be the big challenge. You know, my background is engineering, and in engineering, what we like to think is mechanical engineers build things. And what we like to think about is the transition zones. And if you think about like a car engine, pistons go up and down, and there's a transition between where the piston is and the cylinder is. That's where the damage happens. And it's no different where we are here, right? The transition zone here today in this earlier meeting was exactly that. So and we're going to see that in the future land use map, but hopefully we manage those transitions in a way that the detrimental effect is minimized.
In 1954, if you read back on the city minutes, there were so many people. Moab went from 1,000 to 10,000 in 1 year. So they had school issues, they had housing issues, they had water issues, they had everything. Swanee City Park was called Moab City Park, and it was just lined with trailers. The whole entire thing, and pretty much everybody had anything from 1 to 5 or 6 trailer houses in their backyard. That was pretty common. And there were some water wars, obviously. It's pretty fascinating reading. Anyway, with prices that are so high as far as housing goes, I don't think it's unfair to have an alternative dwelling, smaller one behind your house, which would help whoever the homeowner is, pay for mortgage and or utilities or whatever it happens to be. It would kind of ease that burden a little bit of creating a more affordable place to live. So the obstacles are, another obstacle too is talking to the younger generation about purchasing property, and their feeling is, well, it might be a really cool neighborhood around the corner. Why do I want to buy something and have to sell it? It's like, well, you know, usually rentals are a year-long lease, and so it'd be the same thing as if you rent it, but they don't get it. They don't get that, you know, that they would be investing money. They are just kind of thinking right here. And so that was a little frustrating, kind of explaining real estate to that younger generation, or might not want to be here. If you look around at the map, there actually is quite a few affordable, as much as we need affordable housing, but you know, affordable places to live, whether they be blocks of units or single dwellings. We do have it. I think it would help to have some additional buildings behind houses as opposed to trailers. I also know that too, when you go out in Spanish Valley, some of those zonings are 1 acre lot. The next generation does not want to own lots.
Sorry, Sina, that was 2 minutes, that little alarm there.
Okay. So I'm not sure that we need 1 acre parcels anymore.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think we're starting with Jerry on this one. What is a specific update to the land use code or new ordinance you would like to see enacted to improving planning outcomes within Grand County?
I think rather than a specific update, I would say what I want to see is the future land use planning come to a successful conclusion. And what would I call successful? It would be a continuing over time, less and less of a gap between our housing needs and the housing available.
You know, Moab's never going to go away. It's 1 tank of gas from Denver, 1 tank of gas from Salt Lake City. People will go to Disney World, our competitor, sort of, once a year, once every 5 years. In Moab, the Travel Council advertises for everybody. Wow, is that? So as far as, you know, our geology looks very different from Denver and Salt Lake City. So people come down here 10 times a year, which is nice. And so as far as the planning and codes go, they always need to be updated every 5 or 10 years or something like that, because the city grows and the philosophy of the community changes as well. So basically, that's kind of an ongoing thing, making changes and seeing where the needs are.
I think that's you, Obi.
What is
We're just gonna start number 5.
Steve, were we still needing OB to answer the same question, right?
Yes, I believe he's the last one to answer that. Number 5.
That was the first one.
Oh, yes, okay, got it, sorry.
That's okay.
I got that. So here's one of those things that I think would be nice, and I think we're headed toward, I cannot remember the name of it. Range and resources, I think, is the new kind of zone that we have. Looks like something we have in Oregon. It's not as radical, but in Oregon, you got 200 acres of agricultural land, you can put 1 house on it. And so this new range and resource thing, I probably fought for it at one point, kind of mentioning it, would mean that you would have maybe 20 acres and be allowed to have a house on it, rather than have 1 per acre, 1 per 5 acres, and then of course you can accumulate them and kind of build up agricultural land or far out land that have forest resources and end up putting a fair amount of buildings, oftentimes concentrated. I like that. I think we need more protection And I'll be working on this, more protection for Moab and Castle Valley source, sole source aquifers. The one in Castle Valley has no protection from the county because we are not a water supplier. We don't pipe water to people. The one in Moab has minimal protection. It looks like it only includes the state protection zones. So that's another one. And then I think we just need to be continually working on having incentives for builders on affordable housing.
Thanks, Obi.
Great, thank you. Okay, so question number 6 here, and actually OB and Jerry, we got to see you in action on this one. So feel free to be as comprehensive or as brief as you'd like on this. The question here is, describe how you would approach a landowner requesting to upzone their property for higher density, for example, from large lot residential to multifamily residential.
It's Sina's turn.
So how would I approach landowners requesting upzoning on the property for high density? You know, obviously in the city, everything's closer together. As you move farther away from the city, your lot lines sometimes are 25 feet from the road, and right in the city, you're right on the sidewalk. So as you move farther away, that's the model design of how a city or community should look. And you know, I think it's not that it has to be each individually, but you really have to look at now is parking. Is it ample parking? Because when we allowed years ago bed and breakfast and nightly rentals, people were not coming with UTVs on trailers with 3 or 4 UTVs. And so what the problem that I had heard many times was you go home and you got to park a half a block away to carry your groceries into your house because the person next door has got a nightly rental and you can't get in. You can't knock on the door and say, hi, could you please move your vehicle? I want to get my car in my driveway. Oh yeah, no problem. We're just about ready to sit down and eat. We'll do it right after we eat. Okay, guess what? The next day you got a new person staying there. You continuously over and over and over again have to deal with that. So it's a little bit difficult in a neighborhood. So I think parking is critical when you're talking about upzoning or making a larger lot more residential people. So people recreate differently, can come to the area with different types of vehicles and trailers and stuff like that. So I would say parking is a big, and it's not just parking for one vehicle. People don't come with parking with one vehicle, they come with a trailer. So.
So I think we're on number 6, OB.
6
for-
again. Okay, so this is right. I'm having, of course, great trouble.
It's
So,
okay.
Not surprisingly, on my little list here, the very first thing is look at the future land use plan. Also on my list is the compatibility with adjacent lands. And the third one I had on my list is what will it do for the county? And that means in terms of housing or in terms of is that particular business needed? And I guess I should add, are there alternative places the business could be? And there's a mix there. So it's a very interesting mix because I share some feelings, not necessarily in the last case we just heard, but because it seems to be really maybe not the right location for this particular business, but all of those things, of course, come to play, and you have to make a judgment call on them. That's, of course, the reason we have such commissions.
So as far as zoning change goes, there are zoning changes that are applied for, make sense and go through. And there are zoning changes that are applied for, don't make sense, and don't go through. What we don't want to do is have one of those that doesn't make sense and does go through. Right? And why might they not make sense? I think a good litmus test is if you have a room full of angry people, it probably doesn't make sense. That's what we had earlier here tonight. And there were really good reasons for that too. If you listen to the conversations, the driveway's steep, they're already encroaching on somebody else's land, there's a lot of dust, a lot of traffic, heavy trucks on a dirt road or on a dirt driveway. I mean, there are reasons the zoning maps are the way they are today, and the regs are the way they are today. And what those regs do is they protect not only the county, but the landowners on the land. So I guess from an impact statement, those are some of the things that I'd be looking at when somebody makes that application. I think as a general rule of thumb, like I said, a room full of angry people is probably a sign that we're not doing the right thing.
Thanks, Jeff.
Great. And now our final question here. Thinking about private property rights and regulations and zoning, how do you balance these sometimes competing values?
This is terrible because it's my question, and as I sat down with it, I thought, but what I of course was looking for answers from my point of view is that they need balance. So, we do know, of course, we have ordinances and some things you can do by rights. They just often pass us as a planning commission because, hey, well, here's the setback, et cetera, somebody builds a single house on their lot. We won't even see it. It's not a legislative decision. And then there are things, of course, the community will not allow. And I think those are equally important. That is, you can't build a 10-story building next to your neighbor, or you can't build right up onto their lot. This gets trickier when we have to do decisions like crafting ordinances. Now, all of a sudden, you're sitting in a position of what should the people's rights be, and then what should the community interest be that kind of balance those rights. Otherwise, people who had people who had lots of property would just absolutely dominate the community, and the community would have no rights for things. So it happens in ordinances where the rubber meets the road, and then it happens when we make these legislative decisions like a request for a rezone. We are kind of balancing. People have some rights to do stuff on their property. The community also has some rights, and we've got to kind of meld them and balance them. That's what I was looking for. So property rights regulations. And so, I guess from a standpoint of property rights, when somebody buys a piece of property, they know or should know what rights come with it. And in general, at least in the months I've been here, you don't seem to see a whole lot of problems where somebody bought a property and want to use it for something else immediately afterwards, right? The issue becomes changes over time. And, where Moab is in a position today where we need to accept the fact that we have to make changes. How do we manage that? And the approach that we're taking right now really is one where we make incremental changes, small changes, and larger changes will be made over a long period of time. And that's really the purpose of future land use map. And so the way that you avoid room full of angry people as you make change is make small incremental ones, or the bigger changes are made gradually over a long period of time with the use of future land use.
That way the rights of the property owners are not followed.
A tough question to answer because it's everybody is only looking at their own individual interests, and it becomes a semantics game between property owner and people. And although they hear what they're supposed to do, they already have in mind what they want to do. So this is a fight that you're always going to have in planning and zoning. It's always good to have regulations in place so that it can be enforced by the law. But it's a hard one. There is no real answer to it. You just have to realize that you're going to get this all the time in a lot of cases in planning and zoning. And they're going to argue over and over again of how they can wiggle in and get it. So it's a tough job. It's a tough job that you guys have for that type of situation. So what I'm basically saying is there's no one answer for this one. It's a sort of an ongoing.
Great, thank you, everyone. And as for voting goes on this, I know we have it to where anybody can request, any of the planning commissioners can request whether we do a closed ballot. I'm wondering if that might just be the easiest thing for us to do here is if we just email what's the planning email? That way it's kind of on the record if it was ever refuted or anything.
planning@grandcountyutah.net.
And that would work out right if we just did, who each of us, just both selections and then the folks with the most tallies would be selected. Okay. Any objections to going at it that way?
I don't have any objections, Steve. I just want to double check because we do have like a motion on the agenda.
Mm-hmm. So I think that in your email, you know what, you're right. I don't think we need to worry about too much about the motion that's that was kind of a recommended motion, but we've had that as our standard motion. Steve is correct though. The way that we did it last time was you all did something different than make up motion. It was a more of a tally count.
And I would think too that Elisa or any staff could tell us what the results are, share that, and then we make that motion to, formally, I guess, adopt that.
So that would be like now. We would go have folks email us during the meeting, and then we would read that out. Or are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Or would you prefer you could just leave the room, which might make it easier. I don't know if that's the start.
Ultimately, Steve, we're looking to get a vote tonight so that we can put this on the agenda for the first meeting in January.
Email address again? We're just going to go do it.
planning@grandcountyutah.net is the email. And then, Steve, how do you want to take it from there after we receive the email?
I think tally them up and then share who the two highest vote getters are. And then, we'll know then those would be the two folks that are selected. And then if we wanted to really dot our I's and cross our T's, somebody could make a motion to make a motion to select the two members for planning commission. And then we all four voting folks would vote to approve of that or not. And if that's not approved of, I don't know where we go from there, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there, I think.
Do you envision having the applicants step out or remain in the room?
I already know.
I think either or is okay.
Okay. I think it's up to you guys. If you want.
This way it's nice and secret. So
We emailed the planning commission email so that it's not secret, it's a part of the public record. But just- Yeah.
Yeah.
No, there are no secrets in government.
No secrets. Mary, are you able to do that from your device? Okay.
No, not really good at this.
Oh, you're fine.
Told the IT guy, first one to get a computer in this county, and I was the last one to learn to use it.
Double check your email and check previous typo and everyone, just to confirm so we're sure.
Want to do what?
Check your sent email. I think I know what it's supposed to be, but just to confirm.
The autocorrect.
It's correct. I don't know what you're trying to tell me.
The first one may be spelled wrong. Number 1 may be spelled wrong.
Oh, no. It is? It's OB.
I just don't want to make an assumption here.
Right. Well, it says OB, didn't it?
I think it auto corrected to on. O-N. Fine, we got it. Okay. Should I go ahead and read these votes?
Sure.
Okay, so we have 4 for OB. Wait, so this is, okay. We have no votes for Sina. And we have Jerry 4 votes. And we only have 4 voting members right now. So that's it. So we have a tie, or no, we don't have a tie. I'm sorry. We have 2 seats to fill. So it looks like OB and Jerry have the most votes for both of those seats. Thank you, Sana, for coming and participating. And please come again.
I think you have a question.
Sina, thank you for your time and your responses. I personally really enjoyed hearing your responses and the depth of knowledge and experience that you have in Moab. And I'll just share that OB and Jerry have done a fantastic job. And I love the variety of experience they bring living in Castle Valley, being very focused on water and Jerry's engineering background. And I hope to see you apply again in the future because it was, even though there was no vote formally for you on this, I was partially even thinking maybe I should step down and let Sina take my place because I think you would be really great at it. So we'll look forward to seeing your application again in the future.
I also see your ties to Thompson as like an unrepresented place. I know you got a lot of ties up there. It's always kind of forgotten part of the county. So,
Were the questions posted on the internet?
They were in the packet yes, so they were posted to the website. Yeah. Right. I know, and that was my bad. So I do apologize. I had the email drafted to send to you with the link for the agenda, which I posted on Friday, and it didn't get sent out, and I'm so sorry. But I did, that's why I had my computer there for you to see the questions so that you could have a chance to at least briefly look at them. But we do have, I was just looking at the different terms for the Planning Commission. I just wanted to see when the next one would be up.
I think I'm out next year.
Oh, really?
End of 2020.
Yeah, I think we do have another seat coming open at the end of 2024. So definitely please apply again.
With that, I think I turn it back over to OB as the chair, and that's going to be it for me here. Good to see you all, but feeling pretty wrecked here from the food poisoning. So take care.
Feel better, Steve.
Thank you very much, Steve.
I can hear it in your timbre, Steve. Feel better, man.
Thank you.
I could see in the process, we missed citizens to be heard. I'm going to guess no one's on who wants to be heard? And I think we are at future considerations, if anybody has any.
I have a question for you guys. How's the code officer going? The
Code
application-
compliance?
Code compliance, yes.
Yeah, he's great. He's been on
We have somebody.
Oh, yeah, I feel like I announced it one of our recent meetings, but yeah, we hired Brandon Black, and I think he's been on now for a couple of weeks. We onboarded him. He's quickly picking up all of the cases and working on them actively. So yeah, he's been great. He actually previously worked at the sheriff's office as a deputy for many years, and then took a break from that. And yeah, so
Because I just hear from people like, you know, when we're doing the ADOs things, it's like, you know, problems with the code being enforced, and the kid gives a bad name to the county. And then, you know, how can we be like, hey, let's put something in? And then people are like, well, if there's laws being broken,
yeah,
that's great to hear somebody is in there, and I hope they're adequately staffed.
He was here tonight. He was in the back, but we kind of just jumped right into the agenda. He was interested in hearing how the meeting went and how everything operated, so he was here.
Okay. What's his name again?
Brandon Black.
Okay. Maybe next time, if he's here next time, could you introduce him to the group?
Sure, yeah, we could definitely do that.
I wanted to thank whoever it was that had the plaques made, had the Robert's Rules of Orders
Mikkel.
brought in.
And you didn't mean to leave me with this book. But I'm leaving it here. That's somebody else's, I hope.
I think.
Okay.
And thank you for the Christmas kisses.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Really helped me through that 6 o'clock hour.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Right.